A loud thud startled everyone in the cafeteria, drawing all attention to the source of the commotion. Gasps filled the air as students took in the sight before them. Minho had just collided with the most feared figure on campus. To make matters worse, the juice bottle in Minho's hand had spilled all over the person he had unintentionally bumped into. Whether it was intentional or not, one thing was certain: Minho was in serious trouble. He stood frozen, head bowed, too terrified to get up. He knew exactly who he had just run into: Jungkook. At this university, no one was unfamiliar with that name. The campus bad boy. Unfortunately, Jungkook wasn't just intimidating, he was also devastatingly handsome, and anyone who dared to cross him never walked away unscathed. Standing before him, Jungkook let out a low growl, his eyes dark with irritation. His once pristine shirt was now stained with the juice Minho had been carrying. Behind Jungkook, his two friends, Yoonwoo and Minju, exchanged knowing smirks. Minho was done for. "Senior, I'm sorry. Please forgive me," Minho stammered as he scrambled to his feet, his body trembling. He reached out hesitantly to wipe the stain off Jungkook's shirt, but before his fingers could even brush the fabric, he found himself crashing to the floor again. Jungkook had shoved him without a second thought. A sharp gasp echoed through the cafeteria, but no one dared to interfere. They all knew better than to get involved. This wasn't the first time they had witnessed a scene like this. "You dare touch my shirt again? Thanks to you, it's ruined," Jungkook spoke, his voice icy and indifferent. "I'm sorry, senior. I really am. I just wanted to clean the stain." Minho struggled to his feet, one hand clutching his stomach where Jungkook had punched him earlier. Jungkook exhaled sharply, trying to rein in his frustration. Today had actually started as a good day. His beloved mother had finally returned after accompanying his father on a business trip abroad. Despite his bad boy reputation, Jungkook had a soft spot for his mother. As an only child, he was rather spoiled when it came to her. "You're lucky today," Jungkook muttered. "Now get out of my sight before I change my mind." Minho nodded frantically, bowing in gratitude before making a hasty exit from the cafeteria. He sighed in relief, grateful to have escaped relatively unscathed. With the tension dissolving, Jungkook turned on his heel and strode out of the cafeteria, his usual entourage, Yoonwoo and Minju, walking beside him. The cafeteria, which had been deathly silent moments ago, suddenly buzzed with murmurs. Many students hadn't even realized they had been holding their breath. "That freshman is lucky. It's rare for Jungkook to let someone off so easily," Yuju remarked, breaking the silence. Yin shrugged. It was true. Jungkook rarely spared anyone who dared provoke him. "Maybe he's already repented," she joked, chuckling softly. Yuju scoffed, taking a sip of her now warm orange juice. As if, a cold, ruthless guy like him, not a chance. "What's more surprising is how so many girls still fall for him," she said before narrowing her eyes at Yin, "including a certain best friend of mine." Yin chuckled softly. "Well, what can I say? He's handsome, smart, and quiet. He has that mysterious vibe that makes me curious. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with liking him," she said casually. She had secretly liked Jungkook for the past 2 years. No one knew about her feelings except for Yuju. Yin had only ever confided in her, but despite her feelings, she never dared to approach him openly. He was cold and untouchable. Many girls had already been rejected by him, some rather harshly. So Yin chose to keep her feelings to herself, hidden in silence. "Then go after him. Stop just watching and admiring from afar. You guys are graduating soon," Yuju urged. Yin shook her head, still chuckling. "I don't have the courage, Yuju. I'm not even sure if Jungkook knows I exist," she said self-deprecatingly, making Yuju roll her eyes in frustration. "If even the most popular girls got rejected so easily, what chance do I have when I'm practically invisible to him?" Yuju looked at Yin with sympathy. She knew Yin often struggled with insecurity, largely because she was an orphan. 4 years ago, on the same day as her high school graduation, Yin had lost both her parents in a tragic accident. She had once lived with them in Bizen, but after their passing, she decided to move to Seoul for university, renting a modest apartment on her own. Fortunately, her parents had left behind no debts and had a sizable insurance fund to support her. Thanks to her intelligence, Yin had also earned a full scholarship, allowing her to save money until she was ready to work. She also still owned the house her parents had left behind in Bizen. If she ever found herself in real financial trouble, selling it would be an option, but only as a last resort. "You're beautiful, Yin. Stop putting yourself down like this. You have qualities that others don't," Yuju reassured her for what felt like the 100th time. In reality, many people liked Yin. She was pretty, smart, kind, and never caused trouble. but she never paid much attention to any of them. Her heart had already chosen Jungkook, unfortunately for her, a man who felt impossible to reach. Yin didn't say much in response, only offering a small smile. Thank you, Yuju. You're truly the best friend I could ask for. She felt lucky to have Yuju, someone who had been by her side through both the good and the bad. On a certain night, ear-shattering music, dazzling lights, and a crowded dance floor greeted Yin and Yuju as they stepped into the venue for their graduation party. They had just attended their graduation ceremony the day before, and tonight, they had rented out a large and luxurious nightclub in the city center to celebrate. From the moment she entered, Yin felt uneasy. She wasn't used to wearing such short and revealing outfits. It was all because of Yuju, who insisted that wearing conservative clothes to a club would make her a laughingstock. In the end, she had settled on a form-fitting black knee-length dress with an open shoulder design, held up only by thin straps. Her makeup was also done flawlessly, enhancing her beauty. Wow, is that Yin? Yoonwoo asked in awe, nudging his chin in her direction as she entered the club, now mingling with their classmates. See, she's really beautiful, isn't she? Minju added. He and Yoonwoo had talked about Yin on multiple occasions before. Meanwhile, Jungkook, who was sitting beside Minju, remained expressionless as he watched Yin. He was genuinely surprised by her appearance tonight. They were in the same class, but he had barely spoken to her before. Yoonwoo shook his head repeatedly, chuckling. I never thought someone as innocent as Yin could look this sexy. The innocent ones are the most fun, Minju quipped, laughing along with Yoonwoo. Right, Jungkook, he teased, nudging Jungkook's arm, but Jungkook only shrugged indifferently, as if he didn't care. Hey, don't drink too much. The party's not over yet, Yoonwoo teased when he noticed Jungkook had already emptied a bottle. Jungkook ignored him, tilting the bottle back again until his head started spinning. Damn, he was definitely going to get drunk soon, but he didn't care. He just wanted to enjoy himself tonight. As his consciousness faded, his gaze fixated on Yin, who was laughing with her friends, his expression unreadable. Meanwhile, on the other side of the club, Yin, already drunk, had been forced to drink after losing a card game. 3 glasses in, and she was already feeling dizzy. Her face flushed red, and her vision blurred. Yin, are you drunk? Yuju asked worriedly. Yin smiled and shook her head. I'm not drunk, Yuju, she insisted, though her actions said otherwise. She was completely wasted. Then, she stood up. I need to go to the restroom. I feel dizzy. Do you want me to come with you? Yuju offered, concerned. Yin waved her hand dismissively, signaling that she could manage on her own. With unsteady steps, she weaved through the crowd, disappearing from sight. As Yin stepped out of the restroom, she accidentally bumped into a man who had also just exited the restroom beside hers. Blinking slowly, her vision blurred, making it impossible to recognize him. Still intoxicated and fueled by an unknown surge of confidence, Yin flashed him a sweet smile. You're so handsome, she complimented, her fingers boldly tracing along his jaw. You look exactly like someone I like. The man, none other than Jungkook, stiffened in shock at the unexpected touch. Through his hazy vision, he vaguely recognized her. Was this really Yin? He wasn't entirely sure, as his own consciousness was slipping away. The warmth of her fingertips against his skin and the sultry tone of her voice made Jungkook swallow hard, his breath hitching. Without thinking, he grabbed her wrist, stopping her movements. You're quite bold to touch me like that, Yin, he murmured, his voice deep and laced with something dark. But I'll let it slide, because you look stunning tonight. His eyes gleamed with a dangerous intensity. His gaze drifted down to her lips, glossy under the dim club lights, making something inside him stir. Your lips look so tempting. Can I kiss you? Yin nodded slowly, feeling elated that the handsome man before her resembled the one she secretly loved. Her intoxicated mind blurred the line between reality and fantasy. This must be a dream. There's no way this is Jungkook, she thought hazily. But before she could process anything further, her mind completely shut down. As their drunken states took over, their lips met. The kiss was soft at first, hesitant and slow, before deepening into something desperate and unrestrained. Neither of them wanted to stop. Yin's arms wrapped around Jungkook's neck, pulling him closer, while his hands gripped her waist tightly, pressing her against him. Both were utterly lost in the moment, completely consumed by the heat between them. Damn, you're so hot, Yin. Growing impatient, Jungkook grabbed Yin's hand and pulled her away. He needed a better place to kiss this incredible girl, or maybe even do more. Both of them had completely lost their senses, chasing nothing but fleeting pleasure. They ended up doing something they never should have in one of the club's private rooms. Unaware, unconscious of the fact that what they did that night would shape their fate forever. Yin's forehead furrowed slightly, her eyes squinting. She held her head as the dizziness hit her. Blinking slowly, her eyes opened. Still not fully awake, Yin was startled when she found herself in one of the rooms. Looking down, she was even more shocked to see that she was only covered by a thick blanket that now wrapped around her. "What did I do last night?" she whispered. Her shock didn't end when she realized there was a man lying next to her, asleep in the same state. His breathing was steady, but it froze Yin in place. Faintly, she remembered what she had thought was a dream the night before. So it wasn't a dream? Yin was truly shocked. Damn it, because of being drunk, she cursed inwardly, repeatedly regretting her carelessness. Fear washed over her as she bit her bottom lip hard. There was a tightness in her chest as she realized that they had really done it while drunk. Closing her eyes, Yin felt regret. Even though Jungkook was the man she loved, none of this was right. Before Jungkook woke up, Yin planned to leave. Slowly, she lifted the blanket and put on her clothes, which were scattered across the floor. Ignoring the pain in her lower body, she quickly got dressed. Looking back for a moment, Yin gazed at Jungkook with sadness. She had to leave before he woke up, or things would be awkward between them. Once the door closed, Jungkook's eyes slowly opened. He had actually been awake for a while, but he pretended to sleep so that Yin wouldn't be scared of him. Trying to sit up properly, Jungkook cursed softly. "You idiot, Jungkook. How could you have taken advantage of innocent Yin?" He rubbed his face roughly, running his hands through his hair in frustration. Despite being a bad boy, Jungkook wasn't the type to play with girls. He had never touched one before. Yin was the first, and unfortunately, this happened by accident. Because of being drunk, he lost control. Jungkook looked at the blood-stained sheets, now dried and mixed in with the remnants of the night. He felt deep guilt, but he was determined that whatever happened to Yin, he would take responsibility for it. However, without realizing it, Jungkook smiled faintly. Even though he was drunk, he could still feel the greatness of the moment they had shared last night. Too bad the feeling was faint because they were both drunk. 1 week after the graduation party, Jungkook had already started working at his father's company as the future CEO. He was undergoing training, being prepared to take over his father's position. Unlike Jungkook, Yin was still struggling to find a job. She had submitted several applications and attended a few interviews. They had managed to keep what happened that night a secret from everyone, even Yuju. Yin had lied, saying she had to leave early that night because her headache had worsened. But Jungkook couldn't shake off the uneasiness. He kept thinking about the mistake he had made with Yin, and he knew that she must be carrying a much heavier burden than he was. And that was why he was here now, standing in front of Yin's modest apartment, an address he had gotten from Yoonwoo. Jungkook had no idea how a flirt like Yoonwoo even knew where Yin lived, but that wasn't his main concern. Instead, nervousness crept over him as he stood at her door. Licking his lower lip anxiously, Jungkook knocked lightly. Moments later, the door opened. Yin froze in shock when she saw Jungkook standing outside her apartment. "Jungkook, what is it?" Yin asked hesitantly. Jungkook remained silent, taking in Yin's appearance, something he had never seen before. She stood there in her short pajamas, her hair messily tied up, and fluffy house slippers on her feet. To Jungkook, she looked unbelievably cute. Clearing his throat, he met her gaze. "Can I come in?" The deep timbre of his voice made Yin's heart race. She nodded stiffly and stepped aside to let him in. The apartment wasn't very big, but it was neat and clean, just right for someone living alone. Jungkook's sharp eyes scanned the room and landed on a piece of paper sitting on the pantry table, a CV. So, she was looking for a job. Now sitting on the couch, Jungkook watched as Yin walked from the pantry, carrying 2 cans of soda, which she placed on the table in front of him. "Sorry, this is all I have. I haven't gone shopping yet," Yin said nervously. Her heart was pounding. What was Jungkook doing here all of a sudden? "What do you need, Jungkook?" she asked again. The soft, gentle tone of her voice made Jungkook sit up straight. His sharp gaze locked onto hers, his expression unreadable. As always, he wasn't one for unnecessary small talk, even though he had secretly smiled a little earlier when she walked away to get the drinks. "Did anything happen after that night?" Jungkook asked directly. Even without further explanation, Yin knew what he meant by that night. She was actually surprised that Jungkook remembered what they had done. She had assumed he was too drunk to even realize that she was the one he had been with. So far, nothing, Yin replied quietly, lowering her head and fidgeting with her fingers. Jungkook exhaled sharply. The guilt weighed heavy on him. He had taken something precious from her. Even though they had both been drunk, Jungkook knew that Yin had been a virgin that night. And yet, he had taken that from her, something that should have been given only to her husband or the man she truly loved. "I'm sorry, Yin," Jungkook said regretfully. Yin shook her head, forcing a small smile despite the tightness in her chest. "It's okay. We were both drunk that night. It wasn't just your fault. I was at fault too. I think we both lost control." Her words only deepened his guilt. A kind, innocent girl like her, and he had ruined her. "I'll take responsibility if anything happens," he said firmly. "I may be reckless, but I still have a conscience. You don't have to be afraid or hesitate to reach out to me." Yin nodded without saying a word. His words eased her heart a little, but she knew the truth. Jungkook was only offering responsibility out of guilt, not because he loved her. Finally, for the first time, Jungkook gave a girl his phone number. He handed her his business card. "Call me if you need anything." Yin accepted it with uncertainty. "Thank you, Jungkook," she said softly, though she wasn't sure if she would ever use it. She wasn't ready to decide yet. Right now, she was still waiting to see if what she feared would come true. 1 month later. It was as if fate had turned against her. Yin's body trembled as she stared at the test pack in her hands. 2 red lines. She was pregnant. Tears streamed down her face as panic and confusion overwhelmed her. This all started when she noticed the strange changes in her body, frequent nausea, dizziness, and exhaustion. Then she realized she had missed her period. She had been so focused on finding a job, one that, unfortunately, she still hadn't secured. Gripping her phone tightly, she hesitated. "No, I can't call Jungkook," she whispered, shaking her head repeatedly. The tightness in her chest made it hard to breathe. "He doesn't love me. He only pities me. I don't want to ask for responsibility from a man who doesn't love me." Sitting on the edge of her bed, Yin tried to gather her thoughts. She couldn't go back to Bizen. She couldn't return to her childhood home, not like this. The thought of facing everyone in her hometown, pregnant and unmarried, was unbearable. And she had no intention of getting rid of this baby. No matter what, she would raise this child on her own. After all, this was the child of the man she secretly loved. "I have to leave this place. I can't let Jungkook find out." With determination, Yin grabbed her phone and dialed the one person she could trust. "Hello, Yuju. I need your help." Yuju watched as Yin carefully arranged her clothes in the wardrobe. Her expression was filled with concern as she listened to her friend's story. After calling Yuju earlier, Yin had asked for help in finding a new apartment, one far away from the city. "Are you really not going to tell Jungkook, Yin?" Yin shook her head, still focused on organizing her clothes. "No, what for?" "But he has the right to know. That's his child too," Yuju tried to reason with her. Yin let out a quiet sigh, stopping what she was doing. Her eyes met Yuju's, and Yuju could see the pain hidden in them. "And then what? After Jungkook finds out I'm pregnant with his child, what will happen?" Yin asked, answering her own question before Yuju could speak. "He'll take responsibility, and maybe, he'll marry me." A bitter smile appeared on her lips. "I don't want to marry someone who doesn't love me. That would be too painful. I'd rather raise this child on my own." Her hand gently caressed her still flat stomach, a soft, emotional smile forming on her lips. "Besides, I still have my savings. I think I can handle things financially." Yuju could see the determination in Yin's eyes. She had known Yin for years now. To Yuju, Yin was one of the strongest and most incredible women she had ever met. When Yin lost both of her parents and had to live on her own, she never complained. She overcame her grief and continued to move forward, just as her parents would have wanted. And now, even after getting pregnant from a one-night encounter with Jungkook, Yin wasn't falling apart. Maybe she was sad and scared, but she hid it well. "If that's your decision, I won't force you." Yuju finally relented. "It's your choice, Yin. You know what's best for you. But don't hesitate to ask for my help, okay?" Yin nodded, then stepped closer to Yuju. "I will, Yuju. Thank you for helping me so much. I don't know who else I could turn to if not you. I'm sorry for troubling you." Yuju smiled and shook her head. "You're not troubling me, Yin. I'm your best friend. It's only right that I'm here when you need me." Then, as if a thought crossed her mind, Yuju paused before saying, "I'll live with you. That way, we can look after each other." Yin's eyes widened in surprise, her face lighting up. "Really, Yuju?" Yes, I couldn't bear to leave my best friend alone, especially while you're pregnant. Overwhelmed with happiness, Yin quickly hugged Yuju, whispering countless words of gratitude. Yin successfully secured a job at a small company as an administrative staff member. Since becoming pregnant, she had decided to bury her ambitions of working at a large corporation. Instead, she sought a job that was less stressful and had a lighter workload. It didn't matter if the salary wasn't high. What mattered was that she didn't overwork herself and could take good care of her pregnancy. After all, she still had a substantial amount of savings left from her parents. Being a young mother to be without a partner wasn't easy for Yin. She had to struggle alone, dealing with the unpredictable changes in her body. Fortunately, she had Yuju, who was always there to help her whenever she needed it. All those difficult days were finally rewarded when the cries of a newborn baby boy echoed through one of the maternity hospital rooms. Yin smiled in overwhelming emotion, tears she couldn't hold back streaming down her face. With trembling hands, she held the tiny baby boy for the first time, his skin still red and soft. "What's his name, Yin?" Yuju asked, her voice filled with happiness and admiration for her best friend's strength in bringing this little life into the world. Yin smiled gratefully at Yuju before gazing down at her beautiful baby boy. "Aeji, I'll name him Aeji." 2 years later, the baby, who was once cradled in her arms, had now grown into a lively toddler who could run around, often leaving Yin exhausted. Just like this evening, Aeji was whining, eager to run around the park. Yin had been carrying him, but he kept squirming, determined to get down. "Gosh, who did you inherit this stubbornness from, huh?" Yin muttered in frustration. Aeji had a habit of throwing tantrums whenever his wishes weren't granted. "Was it from your dad?" Yin chuckled to herself as she finally put him down. "You look exactly like your dad, but it seems like you've inherited his personality too because, as far as I remember, I wasn't this stubborn as a child." The moment his little feet touched the ground, Aeji ran off excitedly toward the other children playing nearby. "Aeji, don't run too fast," Yin called out, but as expected, her son completely ignored her warning. She let out a tired sigh as she scanned the park. The park near her apartment was bustling with people, yet for some reason, Yin felt an undeniable sense of emptiness, a void that had remained unfilled all this time. Over the past 2 years, many men had tried to approach her, expressing their interest in marrying her, but Yin had gently turned them all down. She still wasn't over her feelings, and she didn't want to hurt someone else by forcing herself into a relationship she wasn't ready for. Her thoughts were abruptly shattered when she noticed Aeji running after a balloon. Who gave him that? Yin frowned in confusion. Lost in her thoughts, she had failed to notice the other children in the park clutching balloons. A volunteer had been handing them out to kids. And then, her entire body froze. Her heartbeat thundered violently in her chest. The loud crash rang in her ears like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. Aeji, her 2-year-old son, lay motionless on the pavement, covered in blood after being struck by a car near the park's entrance. Panic erupted in the park as people rushed toward the small, injured child. As if reality had finally crashed down on her, Yin felt as though she had been struck by a heavy boulder. Her legs moved on their own, running toward her son as tears blurred her vision. She collapsed beside Aeji, her sobs echoing through the chaotic scene. Someone quickly called for an ambulance, and in moments that felt like a terrifying blur, they were rushed to the nearest hospital. Yin sat anxiously on a hospital chair, her eyes fixed on the emergency room doors where Aeji was now fighting for his life. She blamed herself for failing to protect him, for letting this accident happen right before her eyes. She had been crying nonstop, her hands clasped together in silent prayer. Beside her, Yuju gently rubbed her shoulder, trying to calm her down. The moment the doctor emerged from the emergency room, Yin shot up from her seat. "How is my son, doctor?" she asked impatiently. The doctor hesitated for a moment before offering a small, tight-lipped smile. "We've encountered a complication that needs to be addressed immediately." Yin felt her heart stop. What kind of complication? Her legs nearly gave out, and she would have collapsed if Yuju hadn't been holding her up. "The thing is, your son has a rare blood type, BRH negative. This hospital does not have a stock of that blood type, and he needs a transfusion as soon as possible." "May I ask what your blood type is?" "A RH positive," Yin answered quickly. She had memorized it after undergoing blood tests before giving birth to Aeji. The doctor let out a slow breath. "That means there's a high chance his dad has BRH negative. Please contact him immediately and ask him to come here." Yin stood frozen, the doctor's words echoing in her mind as he walked back into the emergency room. There was no other way. Aeji needed Jungkook right now. To hell with whether Jungkook would be angry at her. Nothing mattered more than saving their son's life. With trembling hands, Yin picked up her phone, scrolling through her contacts until she found the number she had saved long ago but had never once called. Each ring felt agonizingly long, fueling her frustration. Then finally, the call connected. "Hello, Jungkook." Jungkook massaged his temples, sighing heavily as he leaned back in his chair. Hours of dealing with reports and staring at his laptop screen had left him with a dull headache, but that wasn't what had been bothering him the most. Lately, he had been feeling restless, as if something big was looming just ahead. His eyes drifted to his phone. Since he had given his number to Yin, she had never once reached out to him. Back then, he had been too busy handling his responsibilities as CEO. And by the time he was finally free to visit Yin a month after their last encounter, she was already gone. She was no longer renting the apartment. At first, Jungkook had been worried, concerned that something might have happened to her. Even more so when the apartment staff had no idea where she had moved, and her phone was no longer active. But he had forced himself to think positively, assuming she had found a new job that required her to leave Seoul. Yet, despite his efforts to move on, Yin had been on his mind again lately, ever since that night. However, lately, Jungkook has been thinking again about the girl whose virginity he had taken. Ever since making love with Yin, Jungkook hadn't gotten close to or been involved with any other woman. His thoughts were interrupted by the loud ringing of his phone. Jungkook jolted in shock. The name Park Yin flashed on his phone screen. Did that mean she had blocked his number before? Stunned, Jungkook didn't answer right away. It wasn't until the call was about to end that he hurriedly picked up. "Hello, Jungkook." For some reason, his heart warmed at the sound of her voice. It was still the same, soft and familiar. Closing his eyes briefly, Jungkook cleared his throat. "Yes, Yin, what's going on?" On the other end of the line, Yin licked her lips nervously. She hesitated, but she had no choice. "I need your help," she said softly. "I'm sorry. After all this time, I'm only calling you because I need something. I must seem so selfish." Jungkook straightened his back, disliking Yin's choice of words. "What can I do to help? What's your blood type?" Jungkook frowned. "BRH negative." "Why?" He heard a sharp, relieved exhale from Yin, followed by a pause. His confusion only deepened. Jungkook could hear a sigh of relief from Yin, making him even more confused. "I need your blood, Jungkook. Please, I beg you, come to the hospital now," Yin said quickly. An overwhelming sense of relief washed over her after confirming Jungkook's blood type. His heart pounded in his chest. "Why? Who needs my blood?" Yin squeezed her eyes shut, knowing she couldn't hide the truth anymore. There was no more running. "For Aeji, my son, our son." Like being struck by lightning, Jungkook was utterly shocked. "Our son? My son? So you were pregnant with my baby?" "Yin, why didn't you?" "Jungkook, please," Yin cut him off, voice trembling. "I'll explain everything later. Just, come now. Aeji needs you." Aeji, that was his son's name? A flood of emotions crashed over Jungkook. Shock, fear, anger, and something else. Something dangerously close to joy. Without wasting another second, he grabbed his coat and rushed out of his office, canceling all his meetings for the rest of the day. The tense atmosphere in the hospital corridor was undeniable. Yin and Jungkook sat side by side. Aeji was being transferred to a patient room after Jungkook had donated his blood. His arm was still bandaged, and his mind was in turmoil. He was angry at Yin. How could she hide her pregnancy, hide his son from him? Earlier, Jungkook had already fallen in love with his son the moment he saw him lying on the hospital bed. And even after hearing Yin's explanation, his anger did not simply disappear. He glanced at Yin. She was sitting with her head bowed, her face filled with guilt and fear. Jungkook thought hard. There was only one way he could officially become Aeji's rightful father. "You have to marry me," Jungkook suddenly said. Yin flinched, her swollen eyes widening in shock. "I won't let my son grow up without a dad's love," Jungkook continued. "But I also don't want to take him away from his mom. That's why you have to marry me." A tightness formed in his chest as he said "my son" instead of "our son." "But Jungkook, it's not necessary. I can give him all the love he needs." "You don't love me. You should marry someone you truly love," Yin refused. "You don't have a choice," Jungkook countered firmly. "He needs me. No matter how much love you give him, it will never be complete without me by his side. I'm asking you to marry me for Aeji's sake." "Don't be selfish, Yin." "But Jungkook, I won't take no for an answer. I will marry you for my son." And Yin could only surrender. She had no way to escape or refuse anymore. At least Jungkook wasn't trying to take their son away from her. She wouldn't be able to bear being separated from her beloved son. Finally, their marriage took place. Yin was warmly welcomed by Jungkook's parents, who also accepted Aeji as their grandchild. They couldn't protest much since everything had already happened, and besides, Aeji was their blood. However, the real problem was that Jungkook was still angry at Yin. After the wedding ceremony, Jungkook immediately brought Yin and Aeji to his massive mansion. Yin was shocked and confused when she saw numerous men in black suits guarding every door and gate. Who exactly is my husband? But she didn't have the courage to ask. Jungkook was still mad. He ignored Yin and refused to talk to her. Their first night as a married couple should have been the beginning of a new chapter, but instead, it was filled with suffocating silence. Yin sat on the edge of the bed, staring at Jungkook's back. She had just put their son to sleep. Jungkook didn't say anything cruel, nor did he treat her badly, but his indifference hurt even more. Taking a deep breath, Yin gathered the courage to speak. "Jungkook," she called hesitantly. The man didn't move, as if he hadn't heard her. "I know you're mad at me, and I admit that it was my fault." Yin's voice trembled. "But can we at least talk? Please don't act like I don't exist." Silence. Only the ticking clock filled the room. Swallowing her pain, Yin lay down on her side of the bed, trying to sleep, but the night felt unbearably long. The next morning, Yin woke up to the sound of soft giggles. Blinking her sleepy eyes, she turned toward the sofa in their bedroom. There, she saw Jungkook holding Aeji in his arms, gently stroking his son's hair while speaking in a soft voice. "Later this afternoon, we'll play together, okay? I'll buy you lots of toys." Aeji giggled happily, his tiny hands reaching up to Jungkook's face, playfully pinching his cheek. Yin's heart warmed at the sight. A small smile unknowingly formed on her lips. It was such a beautiful moment. "Good morning," she greeted, attempting to connect with her husband. Jungkook glanced at her briefly before shifting his focus back to Aeji. "I'm leaving for work after this," he said, his voice devoid of warmth. Yin nodded, even though she had hoped for a little more kindness from him. That afternoon, as promised, Jungkook came home early from work, carrying an armful of new toys for Aeji. They played together in the backyard, Jungkook lifting his son high in the air, making the little boy burst into laughter. From a distance, Yin watched them, feeling like a stranger in her own family. "What should I do?" she whispered to herself. She knew Jungkook was still angry, but for how long? Was there no chance for her to earn his forgiveness? 1 week later. It had been almost a week since their marriage, yet the cold atmosphere between Yin and Jungkook remained unchanged. Still, Yin refused to give up. That morning, she woke up early to prepare breakfast for Jungkook. The maids tried to stop her, saying it was their job, but Yin didn't care. Not long after, she heard footsteps coming down the stairs. Yin turned to see Jungkook, already dressed in a sharp business suit. As always, he looked breathtakingly handsome, his hair neatly styled and his cologne subtly filling the air. "Jungkook, I made breakfast," Yin said softly, trying to get his attention. Instead of acknowledging her effort, Jungkook simply asked in a flat tone, "Where's Aeji?" Yin hesitated before replying, "He's still sleeping." Without another word, Jungkook turned and walked up the stairs toward their son's room. He slowly opened the door, his gaze softening as he saw his son still fast asleep. Walking closer, Jungkook carefully adjusted the blanket to make sure Aeji was warm and comfortable. Standing at the doorway, Yin watched the scene unfold. Jungkook's love for Aeji was immeasurable, yet there was none left for her. After ensuring Aeji was fine, Jungkook came back downstairs and walked past the dining table without sparing a glance at the breakfast Yin had prepared. "I'm leaving," he said curtly before heading out the door. Yin remained standing there, staring at the untouched meal on the table, feeling the weight of his coldness settle deep in her heart. It was well past midnight when Yin was startled awake by the sound of the bedroom door creaking open. Her drowsy eyes widened at the sight of Jungkook stepping inside. His usual composed aura was absent, his dress shirt was slightly crumpled, and blood stained the sleeve of his arm. His lower lip was split, a faint bruise already forming on his cheekbone. "Jungkook," Yin gasped, immediately throwing off the blanket. Without hesitation, she rushed to his side. Jungkook sighed, running a tired hand through his messy hair. "It's nothing. Go back to sleep." "Nothing?" Yin's voice trembled with disbelief as she grabbed his injured hand. "You're bleeding. And your lip?" "Jungkook, what happened?" But Jungkook pulled away. "I said I'm fine." His tone was firm, but Yin wasn't convinced. Ignoring his resistance, Yin quickly fetched the first aid kit from the bedside table. When she returned, Jungkook was already sitting on the edge of the bed, undoing the buttons of his dress shirt with one hand. Yin gulped, momentarily distracted by the sight of his toned chest, but worry quickly overpowered her thoughts. Let me treat your wounds, she said softly. Jungkook sighed heavily. You don't have to. I want to. There was something about the way she said it, so sincere, so filled with concern, that made Jungkook stop resisting. His shoulders sagged slightly as he allowed Yin to take his arm and begin cleaning the wound. Yin worked carefully, her fingers trembling slightly as she dabbed the antiseptic onto his bruised skin. She could feel Jungkook flinch, but didn't say a word. Her heart ached seeing him like this. Jungkook, she whispered hesitantly, breaking the silence. Who are you really? Jungkook's eyes flickered to her, something unreadable passing through them. For a moment, he seemed to debate whether to answer or not, but then, he exhaled deeply and leaned back against the headboard. I'm a Mafia leader, he admitted flatly. This kind of thing, it's normal for me. Yin's hands froze. Her breath hitched as she tried to process his words. Mafia? Her husband, the father of her child, was a Mafia leader? Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Jungkook observed her reaction, waiting for fear, for disgust, for judgment. But instead, Yin bit her lip, eyes glistening as she whispered. Is that why you always come home late? Jungkook didn't reply, but his silence was enough of an answer. Jungkook, Yin took a shaky breath before finally looking him in the eye. I'm sorry, for everything. For keeping Aeji from you. I was scared, but I realize now that I was wrong. You have every right to be in his life. Jungkook's jaw clenched. He looked away, gripping the bedsheet beneath him. It doesn't change what you did. I know, Yin said softly, but I want to make things right. I don't want to keep fighting like this, Jungkook. I don't want Aeji to grow up seeing his parents like strangers. Silence stretched between them. Yin could see the tension in Jungkook's expression, the internal battle he was fighting. Then, to her surprise, Jungkook let out a tired chuckle, shaking his head. You're really something, he muttered. Yin frowned slightly. What do you mean? Jungkook finally met her gaze, and this time, his expression had softened, just a little. Even after knowing who I really am, you're still here, worrying about me. Yin swallowed. Of course, I am. You're my husband. Jungkook stared at her for a moment before sighing. You really are stubborn. Then forgive me, Yin pleaded. Please. Jungkook didn't answer immediately, but then, he reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch lingering for just a second. Fine, he finally said. I forgive you. Yin felt a weight lift off her chest, her eyes stinging with emotion. Thank you, Jungkook. Jungkook hummed in response, his lips curling up ever so slightly. Now, finish treating my wounds, doctor. Yin's face instantly flushed upon hearing his teasing. Her hands, still holding the bandage, trembled slightly as her mind struggled to process what her husband had just said. I'm not a doctor, she mumbled nervously, lowering her head to prevent Jungkook from seeing how red her face had become. But Jungkook only smiled faintly. For the first time since their marriage, his gaze softened as he looked at her. His large fingers reached out, gently touching her chin and lifting it slightly so their eyes could meet. You're not a doctor, Jungkook repeated slowly, but from now on, you're my personal doctor. Yin blinked, staring at him in confusion. What do you mean? Jungkook smirked slightly. I often get hurt like this, and now that you've started taking care of me, you have to keep doing it. Yin bit her lip, feeling her heart race faster than usual. She knew Jungkook was teasing, but this time, there was no longer the cold indifference he had shown before. No more distance separating them. I don't know if I should be happy or worried, Yin whispered softly, but I don't want you to keep getting hurt, Jungkook. Jungkook stared deeply at her, as if searching for something in her gaze. Then, without warning, he lifted his hand and gently cupped her cheek, his thumb brushing lightly against her smooth skin. You're worried about me? He asked in a low voice. Of course, Yin replied honestly. I don't want to see you like this again. Jungkook remained silent for a moment. Then, in a movement so tender that Yin barely noticed, he leaned closer. Jungkook murmured, still locking eyes with her. All right then, I'll be more careful. And before Yin could say anything else, Jungkook closed the distance between them, pressing his lips lightly against hers. The kiss was soft, like a gentle breeze against her skin, but it was enough to make Yin freeze in place, her breath caught in her throat. However, when Jungkook began to pull away, Yin instinctively grabbed the hem of his shirt, stopping him from leaving just yet. Jungkook gazed at her for a moment, as if wanting to confirm that Yin wanted this too, but when he saw her shy smile, he smirked slightly. You know, he murmured, their faces still incredibly close. A month after our last meeting, I went back to your apartment, but you had already moved. I thought you had taken a job in another city. Yin bit her lower lip for a moment. I'm sorry. At that time, I couldn't think clearly. Hearing that, Jungkook let out a deep sigh. I'm sorry too, for letting you go through such difficult days without me by your side. After saying that, Jungkook kissed her again, this time deeper, longer. From now on, he was determined to always be there for his son and his wife. He would protect his little family from anything and create a happy home for them. They kissed for a long time before Jungkook finally pulled away, both of them breathing heavily. He gazed at Yin with warmth before whispering, should we make a little sibling for Aeji? Yin's eyes widened as she quickly shook her head. Not now. Aeji is still too young. Wait 3 more years. Jungkook chuckled and placed a brief kiss on her lips again. Alright, whatever my queen wants. Yin's face turned an even deeper shade of red. Damn it. What was wrong with her husband? Why was he suddenly acting like this? Did he hit his head during the fight?